Hi, this is a reading from the book The Wild Edge of Sorrow by Francis Weller. Starting with section Silence, Solitude, and Endurance, Anchoring the Change, page 100. During the intense winter of sorrow, we yearn for things to change. We long for a single breath of fresh air in our lungs. Carl Jung suggested that change rested upon three principles: insight, endurance, and action. Often in my work, Francis Weller's work, with people, I ask that they take time to sit with what has been stirred. We frequently have insights during our time together. New ways of seeing our lives, the ways wounds show up in times of conflict, our styles of intimacy, about the ways we respond to the touch of loss. These insights come quickly and suddenly, like a flash, a flirt, a dream. We are moved by these visitations and feel quickened by the power of the revelation. Our failure to tend these insights, however, often leads to their disappearance. Frequently, people come back to me, Francis Weller, and moan, "I know we touched something powerful last week, but I can't for the life of me remember what it was." Endurance asks us to keep the insight in front of us, to think about it, to write about it, mull it over, draw it, dance it, talk about it with a close friend. Whatever it takes to not let it slide off the table like last night's dream. And then, only then, after a prolonged time of engagement with the insight, we might witness a new gesture erupting into the world. This is how it is with sorrow. It takes our prolonged attention, weighed out over months and possibly years for it to yield something new and fresh into the world. This is the work of our apprenticeship. We must become skillful in the ways that promote our capacity to pay attention and keep insights alive and fresh. Endurance requires steadfastness and stability. We must be mindful of how quickly we can lose sight of the new understanding and slip back into our habitual modes of seeing and acting. We can forget that our grief requires support and friendship and quickly pull back into the familiar territory of going it alone. Jung said that psychology can only be helpful with the stage of insight. Beyond that, however, endurance and action require moral strength as the predominant requirement. We all know how difficult it is to truly change our character. To do so requires a degree of courage and willingness to walk into the shadowed territories of our lives, facing our losses, the outcast parts of us that carry shame, regrets, and defeats. Demands a fortitude of spirit. This is abundantly clear in times of grief. To hold our grief in front of us and tend it with time, patience, and compassion is an act of great devotion. It is an act of heart. In the long run, Change is as much devotional as it is psychological. It is out of love that we ultimately reshape our lives. It is a matter of discipline. A word which, as I tell it, Francis Weller, a word which, as I tell most of the people I work with, has the same root as the word disciple. In other words, to what will we be devoted? What is it that we will love and serve? The hope is our soul. Challenge remains in our work with grief. The eddies that take us away from our courageous heart and back into isolation will frequently swirl around us. We will be pulled into our complexes on many occasions. The societal mandates of stoic striving will deny us the richness of our solitude and the beauty of being held by others. Understanding the many ways that our grief becomes congested helps us to move ever more deeply toward a life of soul. Let us look more closely at the obstacles on the path. Chapter 6, page 103, Pushing Through Solid Rock. Begins with the quote, "Grief is itself a medicine." John Cowper. Many of us face challenges when we approach our grief. The most commonly noted obstacle, perhaps, is that we live in a flatline culture, one that avoids depths of feelings. We have compressed the range of our emotional lives to the narrowest band. Consequently, those feelings that rumble deep in our souls as grief gets congested there, rarely finding positive expression, such as a grief ritual. Our culture, which wants to keep us busy and distracted 24 hours a day, keeps shunting grief to the background. We stand in the brightly lit areas of what is familiar and comfortable, not realizing we have lost something essential to the life of the soul. Rilke wrote a moving grief poem over 100 years ago. It's possible I am pushing through solid rock in flint-like layers as the ore lies alone. I am such a long way in, I see no way through, and no space. Everything is close to my face, and everything close to my face is stone. Rilke's vivid description of the grief state is remarkable. When we enter the territory of sorrow, especially in those times of intense grief, it feels like we are surrounded by a thick and impenetrable wall of stone. Rilke also recognized that most of us enter this space alone, unaccompanied by people who could help us hold the weight of the time. He goes on from there with a humble confession, a prayer, really. I don't have much knowledge yet in grief, so this massive darkness makes me small. You, be the master, make yourself fierce, break in, then your great transforming will happen to me, and my great grief cry will happen to you. And I'm going to stop reading there. This is my way of saying I'm done going it alone, and I want you to know you're not alone. Good grief. Let's heal.